Good morning. My name is Doug DeRusha. I'm the National Sales Manager with the C.R. Lawrence Company. And with me today is Brian Clifford. And Brian is the Director and Brand Manager of our architectural railings and our full metal line. So thank you for coming out this morning. I'm sure most of you are familiar with C.R. Lawrence Company, but in case you're not, we're a manufacturer of architectural hardware. We specialize in glass railing systems, doors, entrance, curtain wall, anything to do with glass and metal we get involved with. The key to today's talk is going to be something called Achieve Faster, Safer, Code-Compliant Glass Railing Systems. C.R. Lawrence. Hello. Back on? Okay. Although C.R. Lawrence manufactures all those products I mentioned, we're going to focus today on the glass railing systems, which tends to be one of the fastest growing aspects of the glass industry. For many years, glass railings were done by your ornamental metal companies, and you might get a call in from them to get glass installed. The trend we're doing now is to make sure that this belongs in the glazing world. Anything to do with glass and metal should be with glazers, not with architectural metal companies. So we're doing a big push on that. We've come up with a lot of different systems to make installation of glass railing systems easier. The key to today's presentation will be our dry set TAPER-LOC system. And we're also going to go over something that's very important with a lot of confusion, and that's the new codes that are instituted throughout the country with the IBC, International Building Code Council, has various codes that set the standards, and we're going to go over that and demystify that. So I want you to take away the options that you have available to you in glass railing systems, and to demystify the codes and make sure you understand the codes per your state that each of you are in. Brian's going to talk about a little bit about what we're going to do today. We'll get at it.
Okay. What we have here is, what we're going to do is we're going to find the GRS system. The GRS system, known in the industry as the glass railing system, is made up of a heavy base sheet that's attached to structure, and then we have glass as the balustrade, and then we usually top it off with a cap rail or a handle. We'll also get into codes. As Doug said, there's 2009, 2012, and a lot of changes were made in 2015 IBC that we'll talk about. And we'll talk about our ICC report, and that's what we call the recipe to success when you're in the glass industry. We have a bunch of those back at our booth, so if anybody wanted a copy, by all means stop by and we'll show it to you. Now we're going to start off the presentation with our action demo.
Yeah, before we actually get into the demo itself, there are, in a glass railing system, there are 4 types of glass railings that you can utilize. You can utilize a base shoe system, which we'll be showing today. You can have a stainless steel post system. You can do standoffs, which is a very modern architectural design, or you can do what we call an ARS system, or aluminum rail system. There's advantages and disadvantages to all 4 of those systems. The most economical is an aluminum rail system, but that shows a lot of metal. The trend in the industry now, as we all know, is more glass, less metal. So the base shoe system is by far the fastest growing and most popular system we have. So there's advantages and disadvantages of different ways to put it in. For the last 20 years, I'm assuming most people have done railing systems. So have a show of hands of people that have done railings as of now. That says at least half of us now. For the last 20, 25 years, the way to put glass into a railing system is the old wet set method. That's where you put the base shoe down, you put your glass into the rail, then you mix up a 5-gallon bucket of pour rock, and you have 5 minutes to pour that pour rock into the cavity of the rail system. And it don't give you a lot of movement, doesn't give you a lot of adjustment time, and can be real messy. We introduced a dry set system probably 8 years ago, and it was the first system in the market that was dry glazed. It was taking wedges and driving them vertically down into the base. A good system, but it had some flaws in it that we recognized immediately. And the beauty of what our company does is take a situation and make it better. So we came up with our TAPER-LOC system. It's probably been in business for what, probably about 6 or 8 years?
A little bit longer than that.
Sure. And the beauty of this is that it operates horizontally rather than trying to drive something down vertically. And I'll talk about the benefits of that. Also, you have to be careful with a wet set system because the new codes that we will talk about are now introducing tempered laminated glass into the industry. And most of your pour rock systems are an expanding cement. And as the pour rock expands, it can crack the glass on tempered laminated glass. Also, there are chemicals inside pour rock that can adversely affect the inner laminate. So once you put the pour rock in, it's set for life. You better make sure that it's exactly where you want it. So if you need to adjust a wet set system, or God forbid if the panels are broken and you need to remove the glass, it's a labor-intensive system. The pure beauty of the dry set system is it's done in a fraction amount of time, saving at least 50% of the labor to install. So now we're going to kind of go about the steps we're going to do. It's very easy. We're going to be installing one panel of glass into the system. We're currently using 9/16 tempered laminated glass with an ionoplast or a central glass plus SGP type of interlayer. This is usually what's code around the country now. If your state does not utilize this current code, it will be. So be aware that tempered laminated glass is taking over the industry, and we want to make sure that we demystify what tools are at your disposal. So we're going to put this in. We're going to go by step-by-step procedures. We're going to talk as we're doing it. This is a very informal presentation. If anyone can't see, feel free to come in here a little bit more. And if you have questions as we're doing installation or a talk, just raise your hand. We're all amongst friends here.
Anybody have any questions at this point? All right, we'll move forward.
The key to a dry glaze system is that you want to make sure when you put your base shoe system down to the substrate, whether it be onto concrete, onto steel, or a fascia mount system, that you have the base shoe set in level. Years ago, you used to be able to put the base shoe down in any configuration you wanted, and you adjusted the glass to make it level. The beauty of this is that once the base shoe is level, the glass is going to take the profile of the actual base shoe you're using, so it's much faster alignment procedure. So we've attached this here. The base shoe has holes already drilled in it. They're drilled in counterboard, and the drill holes are 12 inches on center. So we've already attached it to the substrate. Let's call this a steel platform, a removable steel platform. Usually your substrate doesn't move, so bear with us. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install, take the gloves off. The TAPER-LOC dry glaze system is composed of three components. You have an L bracket, which goes on the back side. This also includes a shelf or a setting block built into this L bracket, and that's what you'll be utilizing and putting in first. Once that's in place and the glass is dropped in, then it utilizes tapers. It operates similar to like shingles. When you put two shingles together, it builds out the gap that you're trying to achieve. We've utilized that again by using it horizontally, and we can actually get the 200 foot-pounds of pressure that's needed when you lock it in using the TAPER-LOC system. A brand new procedure, you guys have all seen base shoe. It's nothing dramatic, but we've actually hollowed out the base shoe and put struts in it to make it structurally just as sound as a solid base shoe, but it's 30% lighter and 25% less expensive. So a hollowed out shoe is the direction you want to go regardless of whose shoe you are using. And then last year we introduced something that's fantastic. It's going to save probably, I'd say 25% of the cost of your install. If anyone's ever done an installation here before, normally you put the base shoe down, you put the glass into position, lock it in place, then you have to get around to the other side of the glass railing to put the cladding on and to put the gasketing on. The only way to do that is with scissor lift or scaffolding, because you're up at 42 inches, it's tough to access that unless you grab someone by their ankles and try and hang them upside down to try and put the gasket in. So what we did is come out with a safety seal system. It's very unique. It's patented by CL Arts. And what this is, Brian's holding the safety seal here, is we're able to pre-apply the backside gasket onto the base shoe, similar to if anyone does curtain wall or storefront here. It just fits into the reglet that we put inside our base shoe. As Brian just presses this in, it's going to lock this one side of the gasket onto the far side. So from now, everything that we will do once the glass is in place is from the user-friendly side, eliminating the need for scaffolding and or scissor lifts. So Brian just put that into place. The cladding is applied with 2 beads of foam tape and then a little bead of silicone. We put that in place, and now the back is actually completely installed. Now we're ready to put the glass in. We have 3 of these L brackets that we're going to put in. The design of the TAPER-LOC system is to have them at 8 inches in from the ends, and then for different thicknesses of glass depend on the spacing of the TAPER-LOC system. For the 9/16 tempered laminated glass, the spacing is approximately 8 to 9 inches. Any of the other glass thicknesses, 11/16 onward, is usually about 12 to 14 inches spaced apart from each other. But by doing this spacing, it's going to pass the codes. This is a fully tested system. Brian's going to talk about a very important test called the ICC test that this is certified to do. So we're giving you the tools and instructions to make sure that when you install this, it's an engineered system. So Brian's putting his approximately 8.5 inches from the end. I'll do the same on mine. And the next one goes right in the middle. So now the back tapers are all in place. We're not professional glazers, so don't try this at home.
We better off having them.
I know. Any glazers here? There you go. Thanks, Tom. All right, glass is now in place here. Brian has a stick. This is not, see for a second. This is not a chisel. A lot of people, when this comes in the kit for in our TAPER-LOC kit, they say, what a cheap chisel. I tried this 2 or 3 times and it blew apart on me. It's not a chisel. This is a glass centering stick. And what this is utilized to do is Brian's going to put this into the pocket and it's going to just center the glass. Just lift yours up and put it on the back again. It's off the bottom bracket. There we go. And now the glass is secure and stable. So now we can let go of it, we can start utilizing and doing the TAPER-LOC system. Once again, what we're going to do is utilize these 2 tapers. For anyone that uses this system, or may ask a question, is anyone currently using the TAPER-LOC system? Great, glad to see it. There are 2 tapers here. Again, they're wedge shaped, but they're 2 different tapers. So when you get the 3-pack, the bottom back wedge, and these 2 tapers, they're not the same. One of them says glass side, the other just has some writing on it. So make sure the glass side is logically on the glass side. There's a little groove on here, so there's a little male-female type connection here, so that as they slide in, they stay exactly the way they should be. What Brian's going to do is he's going to put these tapers together in his hand. He's going to spin it around so the glass side's against the glass. Then he's going to put it into the pocket of the shoe. He doesn't want to drop these down into the shoe because then it could butterfly like this if you go to put them together, they're not going to stay in place. So he just put it down just visible on the top, finger tight. And he's going to take the blades of this TAPER-LOC tool and he's going to push the tapers into the shoe. Now we know it's properly seated. The blades are now engaged to these tapers as you see on the end. And with 2 turns of this tool, it's pre-calibrated and has a clutch on it. So at 45 foot-pounds of pressure, you can hear a click, which Brian just achieved. And now this glass is secured into the railing system. You can walk away from this. It's not set to code yet, but you can walk away from this and start moving on to the rest of the panels you have. And if you have a 100-foot rundown going down a glass railing system, you don't want to install all of the tapers. This particular size uses 3 tapers. We're just going to put 1 in to start. Now this glass is structurally secure. Now I'm going to go down the row and start installing more of them, because the beauty of a dry set system over any wet set system is that once you get down to the very last panel that you measured out, if your gaps weren't just right, you can now go back to any one of these panels, and that TAPER-LOC tool has a reverse on it, and you can separate these tapers just as easy as we tighten them. So when you separate them, I can now slide my glass over 1/8 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, whatever it happens to be, and I've made these adjustments, lock it back in place. Whereas if this is a wet set system, it's one and done. So I usually tell people to put just 1 taper, lock it in place, and do the rest of the project. Once the project's done, then we come back and we put the rest of the tapers and lock it into position. Any questions up to this point? Sure. Sure. It's a great question. The gentleman said, what do you do when the tapers snap or the tapers break? It can happen. These are tested and engineered tapers to be used interior and exterior applications. So they're very hardened and do really well. But the problem is, once in a while, you come to an example where if these are tightened too much or there was some expansion and contraction based on the glass and the railing, especially on the exterior application, which maybe that was, is that as you open it up and one of these ears might break off. It shouldn't. It's engineered and designed not to, but it could happen. The beauty of that is we have the extraction tool here. We actually have an extraction tool, which is a hook. So all you have to do is put this extraction tool, put it into there, and just fulcrum the taper right out, and it just pulls the taper out for you. So that used to be a problem. We designed that fulcrum tool and it worked out great. Sure. Sure. Did you have the extraction tool? Okay. We do have it available.
One thing we did too when we came out with the taper locks for the laminated glass is we also reinforced the ears. So if we look at the ones that we used for the half-inch monolithic glass, this cutout is a complete cutout, where now it's actually reinforced. So you shouldn't have that problem with softness in the glass.
All right, so now what we've done is we've installed the glass into the base shoe. We've tightened up, let's pretend we're not going to do it obviously now for time constraints, but we're going to tighten up all 3 of the tapers that are done there. And this is now code compliant. We're going to talk, once this is done, about the codes that you have in your area. But this is now code compliant. It's locked into place with 200 foot-pounds of pressure that can be pressed against the glass. So we're going to lock in all of our glass that we have it done. And then we're going to push in the other seal that's on the user-friendly side to complete the installation. It is on YouTube. Yes, there is an installation video on YouTube. Once the glass is installed, it's completed, we're actually ready to go. And we're going to talk a little bit about the codes and compliancy. And we have a lot of top caps available. The industry has a lot of top caps available. But 9 times out of 10, they want a smallest profile top cap as available. So we came out with a very small profile. It's only 1 5/16" tall. It's made out of 11 gauge stainless steel. And this top cap will meet code for any of the jurisdictions that you have when a top cap is needed. So this gets put onto here. Any questions about the TAPER-LOC system or a dry set system or anything else before I start talking about some of your local codes, which are very important for you to understand?
Yeah, do you put the shims, we'll say, on the other side, directly on the other side of the L clip?
Great point. You asked what positioning do we put those L bracket shims, which is one of the 3 components. It was the first L bracket that we put into place. And as we mentioned, there's proper spacing to have those done. And once those are 8 inches in from the end, and usually 12 to 14 inches on center apiece, then when you put the glass into position, you look directly through the glass and you can see the L bracket on the other side. So when Brian tightened up the tapers that he had, he married it up to the back side of exactly where that back taper is, because it relies on both of those to work together to give you that 200 foot-pounds of pressure. Yep. So it worked out really well in that aspect. Sure thing.
Do all of your base shoes now use the TAPER-LOC system? You had some low profile the other time that were wet clays.
All of our glass railing systems for handrails utilize the TAPER-LOC system. Even on our low profile, which we call our windscreen systems, we have smaller tapers meant for that system.
Some years ago you didn't have it.
Sure. We do carry one type of base shoe. It's our Bloomcraft base shoe. It's a 2-part Bloomcraft base shoe, and that's designed exclusively for a wet set system to adhere that, and that's only for half-inch monolithic glass. So that doesn't come into play. Most likely, that's the direction the industry is going.
Just to clarify that point, the B5L10 base shoe is 3.5 inches tall. That is wet settle. So we do have one shoe that meets guardrail code that doesn't use taper.
Sure. The key is, and this gentleman brought up a good point, is that we offer different types of base shoes. Keep in mind that the different thickness glass that you're going to be utilizing is based on what the architect is specifying. And it all started out years ago with half-inch monolithic glass. It's pretty much standard in the industry. That worked out fine, and everyone used a certain base shoe that we carry. Now, all of a sudden, there's a myriad of different types of glass thicknesses for a tempered laminating that go anywhere from 9/16 to 11/16 to 27/32 and 1 1/16. So the choices are endless for the thickness glass. It's based on the architect for the specifications. We're going to start to talk a little bit about the codes now, because the IBC code is very important. Sure thing.
I thought I read at one point that you can't use the TAPER-LOC in exterior applications.
You read incorrectly.
You can't use it exterior.
By all means, the Sierra Lawrence TAPER-LOC system. There are some other dry set systems that are not recommended for exterior applications. And our system is proven and tested and certified for interior and exterior applications. Which is great. Great question. Thank you.
We do a lot of, in the Northeast, there's a lot of
tapers here, it's a good question. His question was, what's the manufacturer's warranty, or what's the time frame that these tapers are designed to withstand the temperature changes that happen? And we get this question asked a lot because up in the Northeast, I'm from the Boston area, we go Patriots. So when you're up in the different, there we go. When we get into different temperature changes, you get the heat and the cold causing the glass, the metal, and the tapers to expand and contract. So it's going to cause this to degrade over time. This is not a plastic taper. This is an engineered composite material that's designed to withstand temperature changes. I don't think we've tested it for longevity, Brian, but it's been tested and engineered to withstand any temperature changes that's done. So that shouldn't come into play.
Anybody else?
Good. All right, just start talking about the codes that have changed. Up until recently, as I mentioned earlier, we're using half-inch tempered glass. Tempered glass was used, it was fine. The code mandated if you're using half-inch monolithic or 3/4 inch monolithic tempered glass, it could be done for guardrail applications for the IBC, International Building Code Council. The caveat was that you had to use a top cap when utilizing monolithic glass. The top cap had to withstand the 200 foot-pounds of pressure that is being done. There's controversy whether if you use a handrail, do you have to use a top cap, or there's a debate that goes back and forth. I'm in favor of using both. Some jurisdictions mandate that. But the problem and the only issue was that if you did not want to use a top cap on a glass railing system, you had to use tempered laminated glass. That was the exception. And so if they wanted to use no top cap, they used tempered laminated glass. Then in 2015, the IBC, the International Building Code Council, because of some issues that happened, there was an issue here in New York City that happened, and also in Toronto, Canada, where glass panels sporadically fell out of a guardrail system. I don't know if you ever heard about that about 10 years ago, and caused some damage, caused some injuries. So they looked at that and they decided we need to put more stringent codes into place, and that's where the IBC 2015 came into place, so that tempered laminated glass can now be mandated if there's a walking surface on the other side of a glass railing system. So if it's a residential application, you've been to the woods, you can still get by with monolithic glass. But if it's a potential of any walking surface, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to need to use tempered laminated glass. A railing going up a small ramp wouldn't need to, because it's necessarily not a walking surface below that. But in most instances, you need to use this. And it can't be a standard tempered laminated. It can't use PVB. It has to be the ionoplast or the extra thicker. If anyone's familiar with it, it's almost like a piece of polycarbonate between the laminated glass. So it has to be a PVB type of, it has to be a ionoplast, like a Central Glass Plus. And that's what's utilized throughout the industry. Then the question is, do you need to use a top cap? Now the code says you have to use tempered laminate. And the answer to that is, it's up to the jurisdiction that has authority. Our suggestion to you is that we always want to try to utilize a top cap in a railing situation. Just because you don't have to doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. For the most safest way to do a railing application is that you have to withstand a 200-pound load of concentrated load. Tempered laminated glass with the right thickness can do that. But what happens when you get deflection? And Brian, you talk a little bit about the California code and the code that's starting to happen around different states, that not only do you have to meet a 200 concentrated load, but there's also deflection.
We did a test, a field test was done on a project in California, and then we used 9/16 tempered laminated glass, and the LADBS wanted to test it without a cap rail. And what they found is when they pressed on this glass, it deflected past the point of 0.750, so 3/4 of an inch, which created a pinch point between the next layer of glass. So even though we met the 200-pound load, we needed to install a cap rail in order to reduce that pinch point. Now that's not in every jurisdiction, but there's quite a few jurisdictions that are looking into this pinch point thing. This is California.
And every state's going to have a different IBC code that they're adhering to. Like I said, the codes usually come out every 3 years. Some states are adhering to a 2009 code, others are to 2012. The most recent is 2015. Many residents here in Nevada are under what's called an X code, and that means it's up to the jurisdiction and the authorities of the jurisdiction for that region. Get used to using tempered laminated glass. It's coming in almost every code right now. I'd say half the states, I think I counted 26 states, are adhering to the 2015 code. So you make it really easy when we put a top cap on. Again, this is very small. You want to run a bead of silicone. You want to run a bead of silicone on top of the actual glass, and then put that on the shirt.
So there's a protective vinyl insert in here. This would typically go on first, and then you take another bead of silicone, and then you would snap the cap rail on.
It looks like a very small. Looks like a very small type of top cap that will meet the code that's needed. Now, another advantage to the actual top cap is going to be tempered laminated glass is 2 panels of equal thickness glass is what the code is now mandating, and you have to use the thicker inner layer. The problem is, we all know this tempered laminated glass industry, sometimes you get the glass that doesn't line up, you get the inner layer that sticks above it. Make sure you work very closely with your supplier of tempered laminated glass. If they're not offering a post-production polishing to the tempered laminated, make sure the edges are done the appropriate way. You want to make sure there's not a cavity between the 2 panels of glass, because that can trap water, moisture, and air, which can end up getting dirty. You want to make sure that you have the proper PVB inner layer. So work closely with your glazer, with your glass supplier, to make sure you're getting the glass that's going to work within your jurisdiction. Another advantage of using a top cap is we all know tempered glass tends to bow. As you line up a 100-foot run of glass, it's just kind of difficult to line everything up. Using a top cap puts everything uniformly into place. In fact, a helpful hint that I suggest to everyone is when you're doing a long run of glass, put your top cap on first and lock the glass panels in, and then tighten down your tapers. If the glass is going to be wavy like this as you're going down the end and you've tightened up all your glass, it's going to be kind of hard to bring the glass together using a top cap. If you put the top cap or your handrail on first, that lines up your glass, and then it's easier to actually attach your tapers. So a helpful hint on that. Again, on this International Building Code Council, be aware that the 2015 is to be adhered to. I have a handout here if anyone wants a copy, or I only have a couple of them. Give me a business card and I can show you what the code is for your state. So I have a listing of all state codes and what code they are adhering to at this point. Or you can come down to our booth, which is booth 1227, and we can show you the code at that point there. I will also have a handout, a couple copies if anyone wants it, of common terms used in the industry. So our job here is just to educate you. I'll make sure you're aware of the codes that are in place. Because guess what? If there's a problem with glass railings, who are they going to come back to? They're going to go back to the installer, they're going to go back to the manufacturer. It's up to the architect and the building code people to enforce it and design it, but they're going to reach out to all of us. So make sure that we're aware of the codes that are being utilized in the state that you're working in. Any questions on codes per se? That's right.
In lieu of a top cap, if they're just absolutely against it, I understand the pinch point. What about a ball clamp or something like that? Just to lock the panels together.
That would be a great option. The gentleman asked if you're not going to use a top cap, whether you need to or not, if they don't want to use the top cap, what's going to prevent deflection if need be? I think is what you're asking. And you brought up a good point. Can you use clamps, like a glass-to-glass clamp, just to center the glass? And I see no reason why that can't be done.
No, you can use it. It's a glass bracing clamp or a mall front clamp is what you can use for that. Okay, thank you.
That pinching point is something you have to be careful of, because no one wants to use a top cap. They want it aesthetically as best they can.
Line up too.
You want to line up. You want to make sure that you're getting something that's aesthetically pleasing but structurally sound. So tell them there are different options of top caps. When you go to a mall, you see these 4-inch top caps. That's not the direction people want. This is very minimalistic, and I think this is what the industry wants. So hopefully you understand a little bit about the codes that are in place, the options that are available for wet set or dry set. The industry is going towards dry set systems. There are companies now making some sealants, some fine companies are making some sealants to utilize the tempered laminated glass using the wet set method. As you can see, there are advantages and disadvantages for both. We love the adjustability of the dry set system. If the glass breaks, you can remove glass instantaneously.
And one thing worth mentioning, all the products that we showed you here are available in the HR18 catalog. It's a great catalog with all the part numbers. The GRS systems are all in section 1, the most popular system. By all means, stop by the booth. You can take a catalog with you, or we can send it to you.
Thank you all for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you.